Hello, good afternoon, good night, maybe possibly good morning. We're here, we're live for the new podcast experience, late night chatting with yours truly, YemmytheFerret. We got a nice chill setting here. We got the jazz music playing in the background. Obviously, this is the first episode, so maybe something might go wrong. Maybe the sound alerts are too loud. Maybe the music is too low. Maybe I'm not talking about interesting things. I don't know. But if you want to, sit back, enjoy, get a nice hot cup of Joe. And let's talk about some stuff. With this being the inaugural episode, I'll go over all the quirks of this new podcast. Before we get started, the Ferret Cafe podcast is brought to you by yours truly. And from people like you. Because you are also the producer. That's right. You can suggest topics in my Discord, link down below. You can do sound alerts. All the sound alerts are in the description of my Twitch streams. But I do appreciate it if you would use them sparingly so that they don't interrupt the podcast. Maybe it's more of a podcast enhancer, if you will. The only other thing is... No, actually, there's nothing else. That's about it. We're just going to sit back and chill and have a nice time. Now, we do have a few topics on the ballot today. Obviously, things can change if I go too fast or too slow, you know. The topics for today are, of course, the death of Fubar Ferret, the other podcast that I used to do. We're going to be talking Star Wars today. I label it the rise and fall because I do feel like that is kind of a theme with Star Wars right now, is especially for me as a person, so we'll probably have a special guest for that. Alright, we're back. I believe we're back. And then, of course, we're going to be talking about, I did a Blink-182 retrospective. I'm going to talk about the new album, and I'm going to rank all the albums. So, we already have a little bit of a technical issue, but the recording will be fine. I'm recording this in the background, so. First off, let's just say hi to the chat. As you know from the rules, or not the rules, but just the general knowledge for the podcast in my Discord, I might not be interacting with the chat as much as I usually do because this is a podcast, and I feel like sometimes if you get lost in the chat, you're gonna lose yourself. So if I don't say hello or goodbye, or if I don't immediately respond to something you say, please don't take it personally. That's just that's just how podcasts are, you know. But I hope everyone's doing great. We got a couple of people in chat already, including Squid Daddy, famously was on the Fubar Ferret podcast. We did eat filet o fish together. We got General Kenobi, who might be joining us for the Star Wars talk. He says he wanted to come on, so I've prepared my stuff here. So we'll get to that in a little bit. Callus, of course, from the Blue Kingdom, loves Eminem, hates Sonic. Greedy Waffles, best friend, known him my whole life.
That's an awfully hot coffee pot.
Known him my whole life at this point. He'll be on the podcast probably next episode. And Crazy Infamous, love of my life, of course. So let's get started. By the way, if you think that I don't know why anyone would think this, but I have not half-assed this at all. I have a journal that I've been keeping in my car for topic ideas, and I have about 5 pages of show notes for the first episode here. So I will be going through my thoughts on these things hopefully as candidly as I can, but sometimes, you just gotta write some things down, Yeah, if anyone thought that I wasn't going to put enough effort into this, I've already got like 6 pages of show notes for multiple subjects. So anyway, let's start. We're gonna talk about Fubar Ferret, which was the podcast that I used to do. It wasn't actually that long ago that I was recording Fubar Ferret episodes, but it started all the way back in 2019. I started up Fubar Ferret because I wanted to do something a bit different, like a bit like after dark kind of YemmytheFerret content, where I can just kind of bullshit, and a part of that bullshitting was just kind of creating topics that are just, I don't know, just kind of dirty, just kind of like, late night whatever. Turn down the music a little bit. Gotcha. How about now? So that started all the way back in 2019, and when I first started recording the podcast, it wasn't really put together that well. I'll be honest. I don't know how it really even got the number of views that eventually, or listens it eventually got. But eventually, I kind of got into a groove of just kind of telling crazy stories, talking about crazy things, and it is one of those things that's like, I did really enjoy doing it for about like the first year, and then I kind of fell off of it. If you don't recall, I had a hiatus from the podcast that lasted for probably about half a year, and then I got back on it. And when I got back on it, I had a renewed love for the podcast. I invited a bunch of people on. We had great episodes, and then once again, I feel like the podcast became kind of mediocre, and I fell off of it again. And that's when I really thought like I was never gonna do the podcast again. I really didn't think that it was gonna come back. And of course I wasn't ready to admit it fully, but that's what was in the back of my mind. The episodes had kind of gotten stale, in my opinion. I wasn't putting out my best effort. So once again, I took like, I don't know, half a year off again, and then eventually Callus was like, hey, you should talk about your story about Cotton Eye Joe on Fubar Ferret. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I did that, and I kind of had another resurgence, I guess you could say. But more quickly this time than last time did I personally fall off out of love with Fubar Ferret, and I know it had a lot of fans. Don't get me wrong. I saw the numbers. Okay, they weren't anything to laugh at. They were pretty good, but I personally just couldn't see myself continuing the podcast for another year, let alone another like month of work on it. I had recorded some episodes in the background, and one of those episodes actually got released, which was Chronic Penis Pain. But I was not happy with that episode at all. I felt like I was putting it out just to satisfy people, but not satisfy myself. And that's kind of when I realized, like, yeah, I kind of got to do a podcast for myself, not for other people, because once again, I'll just kind of fall out of love with it over and over again. If I'm just churning out episodes like a machine, I'm not a machine. I'm a goddamn ferret, okay? I can't work myself to the bone for something that I'm not super interested in. And that's when I decided, yeah, I'm cutting off Fubar for good, and I need to think of something to replace it, something that could be kind of inspired by Fubar Ferret in a way, but also something that is better for me personally, for me mentally, and for y'all in the audience. And I felt like doing a live podcast late at night, a different time slot that I'm usually used to doing. Something kind of late night, laid back a little bit, but still with that Fubar energy that you come to know and love. And we'll be able to have more guests on, we'll be able to plan podcasts more easily. I mean, not only are you guys going to be suggesting topics, but I'm bringing my own to the table as well. And when I don't have a topic, I can always look into the Discord and go, oh, this person wants me to talk about whatever. and I can plan that stuff out. I'm giving myself this is a bi-weekly podcast, so every 2 weeks I'm giving myself 2 weeks to prepare and really get into the topic, really research things, because a lot of times with Fubar Ferret, it was like I had an idea and I just recorded like that. I was just like, I'm in, and you go into it, and sometimes the low effort ones were really noticeable, because I'll just start rambling and talking nonsense and then be like, well, that's that. And here we are. I thought that it would be a fun thing to just kind of go through the past of Fubar Ferret and then let you guys know which episodes were my favorite. So if you wanted to maybe have a bit of a retrospective yourself, you can go through some of my favorite episodes that I did back in the day. One of the first ones that I really enjoyed doing, whether it holds up or not, is up to you to decide. But there was a really fun segment in the episode called I Can Assume You Are Serious About Winning Fortnite, where I read some previews for some independent author novels about how to get a win in Fortnite. It was pretty funny. The rest of the episode wasn't that great, but that section was like one of my favorites of all time. Of course, there's the classic I quit my job for Modern Warfare 3. That's like one of my that's one of my best magnum opus stories, because it's just so absurd. So if you want to check that out, that's the whole episode right there. The next one, I think one of my favorite beginnings to a podcast episode was in the episode called John Arbuckle is Cooler Than John Lennon. Essentially, I started off that episode just shitting on John Lennon for no reason at all, other than because, I don't know, John Arbuckle is cooler for some reason. It's one of those episodes that had really crazy energy, and that's not, it's a pretty good one in my opinion. Yeah, and then another one of my favorites, which is probably one of Callus's least favorites, is Don't Be a Tool, where I talk about the newest Tool album, and I kind of just shit on it for like 30 minutes or so. It was actually one of my favorites, because I really did a lot of prep work for that, and I listened to the album like twice in a row. So there you go. Also, Ailstorm Retrospective. I went back through all the Ailstorm albums, because Ailstorm is a band from my high school days, kind of like how Blink-182 is in this episode. And I thought that it would be a good way to start this podcast lifespan with a retrospective for a band that I really love. And I decided to do Blink-182 since they just put out an album, so we'll get to that eventually. But the Ailstorm one was really good. I really enjoyed doing that. It was a nice walk down memory lane. Lots of good memories there. Next up, Amazon Games. That's what got me back into gaming. This episode was probably the one that I was like, yeah, I'm back, baby. This is after the hiatus, and I did the return episode. And some people on Twitter started to argue with me about the Ouya or something like that, and or no, it was Stadia. And one guy was like, well, Amazon Games, that's what got me into gaming. And I was like, that's pretty cringe. After that, the first appearance of Squidaddy. Listen here, you Donkey Kong Bowser whacker offer. Chaotic energy. Just a really great time. Can't complain about that one. Also, GoldenEye sucks. This was an epic rant that I did for GoldenEye the video game. I have changed my opinion a little bit since the Xbox version came out, but this is based on the N64 version, so that all stands. Yeah, I mean, after that, what's the deal with sleep paralysis and why is my demon so sexy? This is a personal one for me, where I talked about my struggle with sleep paralysis. I have actually started sleeping a different way, which has caused it to not happen as often anymore, which is great. And if you want to hear that, I kind of shit on people who don't actually have sleep paralysis. Because, you know, it's one of those things. It's like, yeah, it shouldn't have, you shouldn't be able to move and have sex with a demon while you're having sleep paralysis. Squiddy knows what I'm talking about. Speaking of like sex, maybe Roxanne Wolf has gotten to my head a little bit. This was another kind of crazy one that I really did a lot of prep work for, and by prep work I mean that I played through an entire NSFW game like completely, and I talked about it for what felt like forever. But yeah, it was a pretty fun episode there too. One and probably my favorite episode I've done so far is the I Love the Troll Face. It makes me laugh, which was pretty much just like what if the Joker was made during like the rise of memes, you know. And yeah, that's one of my favorites there too. And of course, Jesus Christ gave us the fish fillet. Now, obviously, Squid Daddy comes back. We eat fish fillet there. You know, it's pretty good.
Fishy, fishy.
And we're getting to the bottom half of this, and I gotta say, you know, there's not many that I would say really tickled my pickle at the bottom half here. But what does muck spelled backwards sound like? You know, love that one. I talk about a tale of police pulling me over, and the guy was just a jerk. So, you know, what are you gonna do? And then obviously the final like push for the podcast was episode 69 featuring Howie Mandel. That one critically acclaimed. I believe I won several awards for that episode because it was just so funny. It was just the funniest thing that anyone had ever heard, and that's kind of where I guess that's where it peaked. And after that, I was really trying to get back to that level of funniness, hilarity, I guess. And I just couldn't get there, and I eventually burned myself out, which is what happened later on, and then I ended up on the Chronic Penis Pain episode, which I don't like, and I hate that it's the last episode. I really do. But what you gonna do? Life is an enigma. But from the ashes of Fubar Ferret comes this podcast, which I'm really hoping is going to tickle people's pickle. You know, I like I said, I'm putting a lot of work into this. It's not like I'm just, you know, sitting down and going, what should I talk about today? About 12 minutes before I start the show. Yes. No. We're here. We're here, and we're doing it live, and we're ready for the first true topic today. Which I have labeled Star Wars: The Rise and Fall. Essentially, Kenobi wanted me to talk about what made me get into Star Wars. You know, obviously, like my favorite games from Star Wars, and I actually even have a ranking of the worst to best Star Wars here as well. So, if Kenobi wants to join the cafe waiting room, I will. I think I can move him into my gift tubing channel and keep the ferret on. Let me see. I figured how to do this. Move to gift tubing voice. Here we go. Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. Do we have General Kenobi here? We are waiting for General Kenobi.
Hello there.
Hello. Oh, General Kenobi. Please say hello.
How's your day?
Hello?
Yeah?
He's here,
Can you
folks.
hear me?
I can hear you. I need to get your levels here, that's all.
Okay.
Say some stuff. How's your day? How's your day been?
Not bad. Not bad. How about yours?
Oh, not bad at all. I'm gonna get you boosted here, because you are a little bit low, but we can boost you in the Discord. So Kenobi, you brought to me this this topic that's very close to my heart. Star Wars. Obviously, your name is General Kenobi, so I don't have to tell you how big of a Star Wars fan you are. But I do have to say that I've been a Star Wars fan for quite a long time, probably the same as yourself. And I guess I'll present the question to you. Before I answer it.
That depends. That depends.
What got you into Star Wars?
Oh, I guess it started with the movies first.
Do you remember which one was your first, or like which one really spoke to you?
Well, my first ones was actually VHS tapes, the original trilogy. We had as soon we moved in, our neighbors, which are friends, relatives, well, relatives, let's say. But anyways, and they had the VHS tapes of. I wasn't sure what they're gonna give me or like lend me, but they lent me. But they lent me a big VHS tapes, and I don't know what was Star Wars back then. You know, when you were a kid, you would, you watch like Transformers, Teenage Mutant Turtles, whatever. But then you get like this, and I watched them. Of course, I couldn't understand it. When I watched it, I couldn't understand anything because English was not my native language. But it was funny. But I still remember like Darth Vader, Luke Skywalker, etc.
That's actually a great point. I don't think you have to understand English at all to enjoy at least the original trilogy of Star Wars movies, especially because one, I mean, they're very visually distinct, especially A New Hope, especially for the time, seeing like that figure of Darth Vader walking through the airlock into Tainted 4. I mean, that's gonna make anyone cream their pants, in my opinion. Like, it's one of the most memorable openings to any movie ever. And I think that whether you understand English or not, like, hey, that's the big bad guy. This is the main villain. This is the main threat. And from there, it just kind of goes.
Oh yeah, as soon as you see someone with a black cape, he's terrible bad guy. I mean, because except Batman, Batman wears a black cape, but that's a different character.
Well, yeah. Yeah, he's kind of similar, but also very different.
Yeah.
So, I actually, the first time I watched Star Wars was Episode 1 in theaters. That was back in 1999. And I remember watching the pod racing section and falling in love with just like the sense of adventure that the movie had. Like, even though there was obviously Episode 1 is a bit like slow in a lot of ways. It's very much a political thriller at the end of it all at times. But when I was a kid, Jar Jar Binks really spoke to me. Like, and I think it's exactly what George Lucas was going for, was like, the kids are gonna love Jar Jar Binks. And I am actually photographed holding the original trilogy VHS box set in a Jar Jar Binks onesie when I was like 7 or 8 years old, probably 7 or 6 actually. And that Halloween, I actually dressed up as Anakin Skywalker, and really? I got scared by some dude in like a scarecrow outfit, and I face planted and I tore up the pants for it. So that's a core memory.
Yeah. Well, believe it or not, I did actually see also Phantom Menace in the theaters. I think I was with friends. I think it was with friends. And the baddest line I still remember, it was when Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi standing, and there's a big gate opening, and you see there's this figure guy with a red face painted mask with horns, and then you hear the music, and he Jews one-sided, and then Jews another one, and then you hear the soundtrack, that's it. It's been printed in my head forever now.
Yeah, the duel with Darth Maul, especially at the end, is I mean, it's one of those things that like Star Wars tries to replicate, but they can't do it anymore, Yeah. And it all came together perfectly. Duel of Fates playing in the background, Darth Maul being a badass as he is, and Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan. And there's actually stakes to the fight too. Like, Qui-Gon Jinn gets stabbed and he dies. Like, there's stakes there. You look, I hate to go to this already, but you look at the newer Star Wars properties, especially the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. I apologize if you're going to be offended by this, but they nerfed your lightsaber so fucking hardcore. Like, you get stabbed by a lightsaber and you live because of the lust or the revenge that is essentially why people are living there. I believe three characters get stabbed with lightsabers in the Kenobi show, and all three of them live. And it's just like, why have we nerfed the lightsaber so much? Like, do we look back on these moments where Qui-Gon gets stabbed and go, oh, what a bitch, he died from a lightsaber stab? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, actually, that's a funny thought, because I did the same thing, especially when at the end he started battling him, and I went like full Magneto, with those, like, completed with full Magneto, and then and even somebody mentioned that, I was talking to another person, and he said that, like, Kenobi went full Magneto. I don't like that. I'm like, yeah, me neither, But about the Star Wars lightsabers, usually, I think they nerfed it because it will act like a sword usually. Because with a sword, you usually have to stab a specific part. Like for humans, you have a different biology, while for certain different aliens, they have a different biology. Which again, they don't explain the biology of different aliens, so we have no clue.
Yeah, my only problem with that theory is, like, the lightsaber was, like, cutting through a reinforced blast shield door in the first episode as well, like, at the beginning, where the droidekas come in, and Qui-Gon Jinn is, like, I mean, it's a really cool scene where he's, like, melting the door with the lightsaber, and I imagine getting stabbed with one of those things, and even if it cauterizes the wound all the way around, I mean, this isn't Kung Pao where you can kick out your stomach and still live, this is a vicious wound to your abdomen or your chest. Like, I guess it is kind of ridiculous in a way that Darth Maul lives through his sawing in half with a lightsaber, but I mean, I love Darth Vader. I don't love what's her face, Reva or whatever from the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, but I love I like Darth Vader, so I don't mind him being able to live through that. Plus, they explain it pretty well in the Clone Wars show, so it's not like it's a huge. I mean, obviously it's a huge like twist, but it's also not. It's also kind of believable, especially in the earlier Star Wars days. But I just feel like, lightsabers, like the lightsaber duels, I think to Darth Vader versus Luke, even Obi-Wan Kenobi versus Darth Vader, it's a very simple lightsaber fight, but it really had like a dance to it, a real grace to it. And then you watch something like The Last Jedi in the throne room after Snoke is killed, and it's just so unchoreographed and just kind of random. And of course there's the blatantly terrible fight between Rey and Kylo Ren on the pieces of the Darth Vader 2. And I just go, why the lightsaber is one of the coolest things in any sci-fi movie ever. Look how far it's fallen in its own franchise.
Yeah, well, usually, because since it's a lightsaber, so it's basically a energy sword. So it's basically can cut through everything. That means even the slightest touch, or you cut it, you should be able to see some holes, like, there should be like something, like you see on those anime or cartoon shows, pretty much. That's what I thought at the beginning, at first, at some point.
Oh,
but
yeah. I mean, the Clone Wars series that was made by the Samurai Jack guy is still one of the best Star Wars IP properties out there.
It is, and but it's funny because usually I found like the long lightsaber duels kind of a little bit exaggerated. So the prequels were kind of exaggerated a little bit, except maybe in Phantom Menace between Qui-Gon Jinn, Obi-Wan, and Darth Maul. That could be somehow plausible because it's just a battle of what you call it? Oh yeah, your techniques and your endurance, pretty much.
Yeah.
But any other battles where you fight like multiple times, like in Revenge of the Sith, when there was a fight between Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker, when they're fighting and dueling like forever, you're like, when is it gonna stop? Because in the Rebels TV show, which is if you haven't seen it, it's kind of a spoiler, but if you don't care, then you don't care. When Darth Maul actually meets uh, old Kenobi, pretty
Old
much.
Ben.
Yeah, old Ben at the time. He was already old Ben. He killed him in 3 moves, like it was a samurai thing to do. It was a samurai. It was a samurai theme that he did, and I wish that happened in multiple battles even before, you know.
Yeah, I think a lot of times the people behind Star Wars get caught up in making it as flashy as they possibly can, but they forget that like some of the best lightsaber duels in Star Wars are, they only last maybe a couple minutes to a couple seconds. I mean, even the Darth Vader versus Luke Skywalker fight in Empire Strikes Back, they're constantly cutting between action. They're cutting between different things, and even though the fight might be long, realistically, what you see on the screen is maybe about 5 to 10 minutes, which is, I think, not too bad, especially because there's parts where they pause and they talk and reflect. Going back to Rebels, I think that it's a perfect culmination of the Ben Kenobi versus old Maul is like one of the best scenes in that show, and probably one of my favorite scenes in general in Star Wars, because Darth Maul tries to do the same move that he did to Qui-Gon Jinn on Ben Kenobi, but Ben Kenobi obviously knows the move, and he's probably thought about that moment in his life for his whole life, I meant to say. So it's a very nice ending to both of their character stories, really, for not just Rebels, but Darth Maul's arc in general in his entire existence in Star Wars.
He actually, what happens is that because Kenobi mastered the Form 3, the lightsaber defensive, the Soretsu, pretty much, the lightsaber combat, he actually learned the one that I forgot what's it called again. I think it was Form 6 or Form 7. I don't remember actually what was exactly, but he learned like the attack one, which made him realize that could happen, which he needs probably could save him. And specifically, he learned that for that probably moment, because he was probably waiting. So just like you said, to avoid the same mistake what Moff was trying to do. So that's what he exactly counter it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, let's go back to the love for Star Wars back when we were kids, because I have very fond memories of 4, 5, and 6, obviously. Episode 5, the Hoth battle, is amazing. I even nowadays, it's really cool. Obviously, there's a bit of a discrepancy when the snow speeders are like, they're like, we can't get through that armor with our blasters, and then they tow cable it and then shoot it and it explodes. It's a bit of a discrepancy there, but it's still a pretty cool fight in general. And I remember back in the day at Toys R Us, they had Micro Machine licensed Star Wars toys, which were these little tiny fighters. I still have them in a shoebox downstairs in my basement. And I would actually watch the movies and play with the little Star Wars toys when the fighter scenes came up. It's one of my fondest memories, actually, is watching Hoth and recreating it with my little Micro Machine figures, or the Death Star trench run, and lining up the fighters and stuff, and making them explode and all that stuff. And it's one of my favorite things that is Star Wars related, are these Micro Machine sets, because they eventually, I got the Endor set, which was like this small piece of land with logs you could roll down, and there's little figures like the AT-STs you could put on there and play with them. Same thing with Hoth and the Death Star trench run. There was a Death Star one as well, and I remember having all 3 of those and playing with them so much that they eventually got destroyed. Later in life, probably about a year or 2 ago now, I did rebuy them fully packaged from a local store, and they are on my shelf and one of my favorite nostalgic items that I have right now.
That's pretty cool. I actually didn't have any toys back then. I did have trading cards, Star Wars trading cards, it was a bunch of mix from Phantom Menace and from original trilogies on cards. And that's about it, I think. No, sorry. I did have two ship models actually. Sorry, I had an X-wing and a Y-wing.
A lot of people think that the Y-wing is slow and stupid, but the Y-wing's one of the coolest vehicles in Star Wars, in my opinion. I think it's such a cool and classic design, and compared to like the bombers from The Last Jedi, it's like, why aren't we just using Y-wings? They're much more maneuverable. They won't completely implode on themselves if one shot hits them. There's two people in there, one for the gunner position to cover the rear end of the Y-wing. Why are we using these fucking slow-ass bombers in The Last Jedi when you could just have the Y-wings in there, a fleet of Y-wings in there?
Well,
but I'm getting ahead of myself.
Yeah, well, I don't know. No, actually, you see wide wings in some situations. Like, I know in Rebels they're kind of trying to use those, but I know what you mean. We don't see them a lot, like in action screen time. The only thing you might see those is probably in video games.
Yeah, well, the video games are the places that really stole my heart for Star Wars, of course. I do want to say one of my favorite starships well, I guess it's not even a starship technically because it's an air speeder, but the snow speeder is one of my favorite designs from Star Wars as well. And this has been a heated thing on my mind ever since I watched the episode of the Kenobi show. And the fact that they used snow speeders at that Sith place, that Inquisitor temple, and it was just one of the most ridiculous scenes that I have ever seen in media ever. Like the misproportions of the fighters, the mishandling of how like they're actually used, the space capacity inside of the transport vehicle that they were brought in would not have been adequate enough for two speeders. Having Kenobi and Leia and the other person all pile into the snowspeeder with already two people inside of it, unrealistic as hell. Even like you can go back and read the technical stuff in those old Star Wars books for the snowspeeder. There is no way that 5 people would be able to fit inside of a snowspeeder. It's just not possible. Go back to Empire Strikes Back. It's so cramped in there. When Luke and Dak or Luke's trying to get out of the snowspeeder and Dak's there, it just looks like such a cramped area. It's bizarre to me that they would use a snowspeeder in this instance. One that doesn't have a hyperdrive, that's pretty big, that needs to constantly be moving in order to fly. It just baffles me that that in a train wreck of an episode they also were able to shit on one of my favorite vehicles in Star Wars.
Oh, you brought that up. Well, yeah, there were so many errors with that episode. So many technical errors, and it was very shameful to react at some point. I was like thinking like how they got here, what is that, how they get in. Nobody's asking questions. I'm like, are there even like cameras or something? I'm like, there's supposed to be at least some Imperial officers who can just ask like, who are you at least. I mean, is that so hard to ask? I mean, you're a bunch of security and you can't even ask. I'm like, you see a random strangers, right? You don't even know them. I'm like, who are they? You know? And then you see 2 snow speeders. You don't even know how they came, where they're coming from. I feel like, yeah. So Kenobi was a total disaster. If I was the boss of everything, I'll just say, you know what? You're fired, you're fired, you're fired, you're fired. And you know what? Who was behind it? Kathleen Kennedy. Well, you're fired too. That's what we're done. Because you guys clearly don't know what Star Wars means. It's like the same thing if you put a World War II movie and you put like bad stuff effect about weapons, a certain like let's say a Spitfire and Mr. Schmidt, whichever, you know, and you say, well, they used to have they put this and this, but they don't explain exactly. They do some errors. Then you know it's gonna be a total failure from historical point of view. Well, it's the same case goes for Star Wars because they already built in the whole mechanics in there. You know.
Oh yeah, they're also building off of years and years and years of not only lore, but I mean we've like I said before, we've had the technical guides for
Exactly.
like I remember back when I was a kid, there were 2 different volumes of that dissected the spacecraft and vehicles that are in Star Wars, and it clearly states snow speeders or air speeders in general need to be moving in order to fly, in order to coast along the ground. And it's like it's one of the first bullet points on the snow speeder specs. It's like do a little bit of research. That's all I'm asking for is a little bit of research. And if anyone wants to know the true scope of why this episode in particular was so maddening, just look up the scene where Leia is underneath the trench coat of Kenobi, who stole it off of some officer. And they're just walking through this group of Imperial soldiers and officers, and there's even like an Inquisitor there, and no one notices that this it literally looks like 2 kids in a trench coat put one on top of the other. It's just how bad it looks and how ridiculous. Like, yeah, it's one of the episodes. It's like one of the things in the newer Star Wars era that has completely made me go insane while watching it.
I know. That's what I'm saying. It's like nobody even asked like who are they, you know? It's just like I'm like I didn't know like how does like what is this Force stealth or something? Is that new? It's not something I'm aware of, you know. I'm like, do they have a cloaking device or something? I'm not aware of that either, you know.
All right, Kenobi, video games, Star Wars video games. One of my favorite things about Star Wars was actually playing the games, and I had Rogue Squadron back on the N64, but I specifically remember getting Episode 1 Racer right before we took a family road trip to Disney World in Florida. My dad actually hooked up a old CRT TV, like a really small one, inside of the van and plugged the N64 in, and we were able to play Episode 1 Racer all the way to Florida. One of my favorite memories.
Oh, I think my first Star Wars game was also for Nintendo. Actually, was for Nintendo 64, and I believe it was Shadows of the Empire.
Now that's a good one.
But since I was a kid, and there was 2 missions that actually really pissed me off, and I could just do it out. So I was like, nah. Forget it. I can't do it. It's just too hard for me. So I just moved on from that. I don't know. Maybe if I play it again, maybe it'll be a different take. But after that, I remember playing the Racer, the pod race actually game. Now, and that's what I've been saying. Now that is pod racing, guys.
Yeah, they actually. I think most of the old Star Wars games are on GOG, Good Old Games now.
They are.
So you can try it out again. I remember Shadow of the Empire being kind of difficult. There's this one section where you're fighting IG-88 in a junkyard on a moving train or something like that, and that definitely was a test of my childhood skills. I mean, Rogue Squadron even was a test of my childhood skills. I remember one of the first levels you use a snowspeeder in is on Cornelia, where Han Solo and Chewbacca come in to save the day. And I remember not knowing how to use the tow cable, so I would fail and fail and fail and fail. And when I finally realized how to use the tow cable, I actually cried tears of joy after the mission was over, because I had probably been stuck on that mission for a month at that point.
Oh yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. I did actually also seen an arcade game of Star Wars.
Star Wars arcade.
Yeah, but it was more like a lightsaber duel, actually, like lightsaber duels. The only thing I remember, it was somewhere, Return of a Jedi somewhere, and it was Luke Skywalker fighting Darth Vader. That's what I remember so far.
That's interesting, because the Star Wars arcade that I remember from Chuck E. Cheese. You actually went through the original trilogy. So you did the in episode 1, You did the Death Star trench run. There was like a little joystick with a shooting button on there. And then after that, you did why did I call it episode 1? Episode 4. Then you did episode 5, the Hoth battle, and then you actually went through the Rebel base as Han Solo and shot Wampa, that apparently got into the Rebel base. And then the third one was you started with the Endor mission, and then you did a lightsaber duel with Darth Vader at the end of it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I guess probably someone finished the whole series with an arcade game. That was the last thing probably seeing. Because I was playing another arcade game nearby, that's why.
Yeah, that must have been someone just getting done with it. And actually, one time when I was at Chuck E. Cheese, it was like my birthday, and my main goal was to finish that arcade game. And it was one token play day. All you had to do was insert one token to get 3 lives. And I had done like 5 or 6 tokens. I had gotten all the way to the end for the Darth Vader fight, and some kid was waiting to play, and I'm like, I'm almost done, I think. And I died, and I was like, one more try, but the kid pressed the cancel button on the arcade cabinet.
Oh, wow.
That was such a dick move. Like, I could not believe it. And then the funny thing is that I ran away like sad and practically crying, and I looked back, and his dad had come over, and they were leaving. So.
Oh no.
So he didn't even play. He canceled my game. I was at the Darth Vader fight. He canceled my game, and they left.
Oh,
Fucking
no.
kids.
That was such terrible. That was such terrible.
Let's fast forward a little bit. Battlefront 2. Obviously, you still love this game. You probably still play it. You mod it to hell and back, right?
Well, yeah, I play a lot of mods, and right now I'm playing the remastered mod, which it's quite amazing actually. Remastered mod. Everything's a little bit bigger. The graphics a little bit nicer. Everything's still the same. There's no like big changes, except maybe graphical, and the maps graphic a little bit bigger.
Yeah, I mean, I remember playing this game a ton, and actually it was mostly at Greedy Waffle's house because he had a PS2, and we would go over there, and we would play Battlefield 2 co-op on the PlayStation 2, and we would do like the co-op campaign, and we would do like the Galactic Conquest, and it like did I say Battlefield? I meant Battlefront. Battlefront 2, definitely like if you're looking at Star Wars games and you know, the best of the best. Like, I think Battlefront 2 is pretty high up there, right next to Jedi Outcast 2, and probably
it's close by. Yeah, it's somewhere close by.
Yeah, it's pretty high up there, right next to like, yeah, it's hard for me to think of them right now, but yeah, Battlefront 2 is like, mwah. It was just so good, so freaking good.
It is.
Yeah, you're right. It still is. What am I saying? And they brought these servers back online for the regular version on Steam. So that's also like a huge W. You would never think they would have done it.
Yeah, I was surprised. I'm like, there's a day, like, what kind of day? Multiplayer? I'm like, multiplayer? What?
Yeah, and all EA can do is make like the shittier version of Battlefront at this point. Even though they improved that new Battlefront 2 quite a lot, it still just does not live up to the greatness that was Battlefront 2.
No. I mean, you get the same feeling with the points, you know, you get like many points, and then once you get like reach a certain amount of points, you get a hero. I'm like, what is that? I don't get a hero. I mean, can I just get a hero right now, whatever I want?
Yeah, you gotta get the points. I actually like that system better than the original reboot of Battlefront, where you had to collect like the character token to play as a hero, because people would just camp right next to it and take it every single time, which meant that I never got to play as like Darth Vader, or if I did get to play as like Darth Vader, it would be for like 2 seconds before the match ended.
Oh my god! Yeah, I know what you mean.
But yeah, one of my favorite Star Wars games is actually Jedi Outcast 2, which is kind of more of like it's a third-person action game. It kind of has some Metroidvania elements inside the levels where you need to, maybe it's more like Doom-ish levels where you need to grab key cards to get through stuff, get new force powers to get through stuff. It's definitely what inspired the new Jedi Survivor and Jedi Fallen Order games. And I remember playing hours and hours of Jedi Outcast, just doing the bot battle mode with lightsabers only, because, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Jedi Outcast 2 is one of the only Star Wars games to have a limb, head, hand, leg, just decapitation. I don't know what the word is for limb decapitation, but yeah, it actually had actual, like, brutal stuff going on, and you really don't see that nowadays in games. Even the newest one, Jedi Survivor, sure, you can cut off some limbs here and there, but it's not as good as Jedi Outcast 2's was. Dismemberment, thank you, Cows. Yeah, limb dismemberment, head decapitation, it's all there. And you know Star Wars loves cutting off people's hands, and you can do it so often in Jedi Outcast. It's great.
I played Jedi Outcast 2. I finished the whole levels. It was tough for me. I had to save a bunch of saves with quick saves. Like,
oh yeah,
you
it's
know,
not
like,
easy. Especially when fighting Darth Tyrannus or whatever his name is. Like, holy shit.
Yeah, that was a tough one, man. Oh, that was a tough one, especially. Yeah, there were some missions actually had to go like around something, and there were some heavy fortifications, so you have to check like secret areas or something. And I'm like, okay, where do I go? I go there, boom, he's dead. I'm like, okay. And Cal Katarn get killed. I'm like, all right, it's time to restart this shit again, I guess, you know?
Man, poor Cal Katarn. He never got the love he deserved in the Star Wars
and then when the third game came, the Jedi Academy, which I played it more often as well because, well, mods.
Yeah.
But
mods.
But the funny thing is, they actually have amazing mods. One of the amazing mods that I actually found is the movie duels, pretty much. You can recreate every movie duel that you like in that mod. So I play like a lot. It's still like alpha was still like early access for that mod, but it's still amazing because they created so many times. With Darth Vader, they even have like scenarios from Force Unleashed 1, 2. They had like even from the sequels. I played the sequels the heck out of it. I played like Kylo Ren and was killing Raid non-stop. I'm not joking.
I believe it. I believe you.
I was like, God damn you, Mauricio, get out of here, get the fuck out. Seriously. I was so angry, you know? I'm like, no way, get out of here.
I remember I got one of those cheat books for Jedi Outcast 2. Like, they sell them at like the Scholastic Book Fair or whatever. And one of them was invincibility, and I couldn't progress one of the missions because you have to die in the first fight between Cal Katarn and Darth Tyrannus or whatever his name is. He's pretty much a T-Rex Sith, which is pretty cool. But I remember like being like, why can't I win? Why can't I get past this? And it's because you have to die at that point, and you can't turn off the cheat code unless you quit out of the game. So yeah, that was pretty funny.
Yeah, I remember. For me, it was such a try. So keep going. I was like, keep going, trying to survive. I'm like, oh, no health. I'm like, I just go in the corner. I'm like, heal myself. I'm like, come on. Like, come on, force energy. Come on, hurry. And then I just go back and try to sometimes fight, or I'm trying to like evade, force push. I was doing all kind of crazy attacks on the Darth Tyrannus. But at the point, you like have to lose, I guess. I'm like, what?
So you in your comment you said that you wanted to talk about legacy content or something that could be turned into like a movie or a TV series.
Yeah, hold on. Before we jump in, there's another great game that still worth mentioning is the strategy game Empire at War.
Oh yeah.
Force of Corruption.
Yeah. Command and Conquer for Star Wars.
It's one of still amazing games. There's still a lot of great content for it, and they did like actually also made some updates for it, if I remember correctly, which I'm like, no way, EA is doing that again.
Yeah, sometimes sometimes it's kind of crazy to see when an old game updates. Like just today, I turned on Steam and Roller Coaster Tycoon 2 updated for some reason. And it's like, why did that update? I don't know. I don't know what changed, but that's pretty cool to see that someone is still caring about this game.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. So we can move to Legends. You were saying about Legends?
Yeah, so the first book series that came to my mind when you mentioned, what could be made into a TV series, I believe they're already making something along these lines, but there is the X-Wing books that follow Wedge Antilles. There's like 9 or 10 of them. I read all the way up to like number 9. And then the series took a bit of a turn in direction with the last 2 books, and I couldn't get through the second to last one. But I think that there's a lot of great stuff that happens in that book. I mean, Wedge Antilles is one of those underused characters once again in the Star Wars universe. He even comes back in the sequel trilogy, but they do nothing with him. But those Rogue Squadron books were a big part of my my middle school life and even into my high school life when I was reading them. And they are really well written, and I think they could definitely be turned into some sort of TV series.
They definitely could. I don't see how that could be a problem, actually. They definitely could. Because I'm pretty sure, like, people who enjoy the Legends novels, I'm pretty sure they've even mentioned those book series among the list, pretty much.
And then I always talk about the Tales of the Bounty Hunters book, which just kind of has a mini story for every single bounty hunter that was introduced in Empire. One of them being IG-88, and how he actually hacks into the Death Star right before it's blown up, and he was going to use the laser to annihilate the Empire and the Rebel forces at one blow. Pretty crazy story.
I have that novel. Actually.
Yeah.
Tales of the Bounty Hunters.
Yeah, I still got it on my shelf as well. It's still a lot of fun.
Yeah, I didn't have the X-Wing. I bought the novels a little bit later. I bought the original Tron trilogy, Darth Plagueis. What else did I bought? I have to check my shelf again. But like certainly a movie adaptation, or even could be considered like a 2-part movie, maybe. It was Darth Plagueis, actually.
Yeah, it's funny that you bring that up, because that's also in my notes. I actually just read through Darth Plagueis about a year ago now, and I was like, this really could have been a movie, or like how they do like a 3-part series for a lot of things nowadays. It definitely could have been something like that. It's a very segmented book, because there's like 3 parts to it, but each part is really well done, and definitely I could see it being like a 3-part movie.
Exactly. I don't know why they haven't done. I mean, obviously, people who read it, they know what it's all about, but the people that don't know, they don't know the extended universe very much,
Yeah. Well, yeah. After they said that all the Legends stuff was not canon anymore, that really axes a lot of great content from Star Wars. And even though they tried to do like new books and stuff like that, I was trying to read the prequel to Star Wars Jedi Survivor, which is events that happen directly after Fallen Order, is essentially what it is. And it doesn't read as well as the old books did. And obviously there was a lot of writers who wrote the Legends books, but there's just something not the same with this new continuity.
No. Well, I know one of my good old friends, he loves the commando, the Republic Commando unit, the Delta Squad and all that.
Mm-hmm.
He even read the novels, and I'm pretty sure a lot of fans got disappointed or got mad because it got discontinued, and the Delta Squad was not exactly, pretty much non-existent anymore.
Yeah, I mean, even after LucasArts closed down originally, and a bunch of Star Wars stuff got canceled, that was a big blow to a lot of fan favorite characters and stuff like that. And then when Disney booted back up LucasArts, they they just didn't pick up a lot of the stuff. I mean, they re-released a lot of stuff, which is great. I love having new versions that play on the newest hardware. Like they re-released all the old N64 games like Rogue Squadron and, well, not Battle for Naboo, but Rogue Squadron, Episode 1 Racer, Republic Commando, the Knights of the Old Republic, which is, it's nice to have those, but we still don't have them all, one. And two, I mean, you're re-releasing these games, but we won't get any sequels to them still. Like, it's not like we're gonna magically get another Jedi Outcast game or another Republic Commando game. They're done with those series.
No, so yeah, when we talking about the Republic Commando, I wish there was been like a TV show about it. It could have been pretty much cool.
Yeah, give it to the Samurai Jack guy. I mean, just picture that in your head, the Republic Commandos with the Samurai Jack aesthetic. Like, that would be pure bliss.
The Samurai Jack guy. Wait, are you talking about Genezi, Jesus Christ. Tartakovsky, Genezi Tartakovsky.
Yeah, if he did Samurai Jack in the original Clone Wars, then yes.
Yeah, that's him. That's pretty much him. Yeah, he did. That's pretty much him.
So we're rounding out the segment here. Two more things. One, I was looking at what the different lightsaber colors mean, and I picked my lightsaber color. I don't know if you want to reveal yours first, but yeah, do you want to talk about your lightsaber color first?
Well,
or do you need a second to think about it?
It's blue.
Of course, yes.
It's blue, but if I have to pick like which something wasn't blue, maybe I'll probably pick maybe green.
And what about green speaks to you?
Well, I think it's something like quiet, like peace to me. I don't know.
Yeah, I picked orange for mine because in the wiki it stated that orange represented a Jedi who was creative, ambitious, and resourceful, and I feel like that kind of does get me down to a T there. I feel like the creativeness is a big plus there. Or maybe I just like larf fleas from the DC comics and I'm greedy. I don't know. But yeah, I feel like I'm very creative. Ambition, I think I'm halfway there. Because I'm very ambitious for things like what I do here on my channel and other podcasts I do. But in other aspects of my life, not too ambitious. Maybe obviously with video games. And then resourceful, I mean, I do feel like I'm pretty resourceful. I feel like I can get the job done. So I think that my lightsaber color, orange.
Orange. Well, I mean, that's pretty much. I mean, if you know what the colors mean in general, that's where they win at, pretty much. Because I now check without even checking to see if that's true. And the purple, it just means nobility and wisdom, pretty much. Is it nobility? Well, nobility is in there and wisdom. Okay. So yeah, but nobility is in there for sure. Wasn't sure about wisdom. So yeah, the purple. So that's why I'm saying, if you know the colors, what they mean, you pretty much know what they are, pretty much. You know.
Yeah, I was just closing my eyes and visualizing if I was putting my kyber crystal into my lightsaber, what color would it be to represent myself? And I feel like orange would shoot out of my lightsaber. And I'm not talking about my penis.
I actually don't know. If truly, I don't know what color. But if I have to go with one color, I may go with my favorite one since I was a kid, and my like I said, it was green, probably.
I mean, green's a good color. I mean, it's a nice looking color. It stands for some good things. I didn't write those down, but I remember them being relatively positive.
Yeah, but I don't mind after that blue, because blue is a nice color as well. You know.
It's a classic, really.
Blue is a classic.
I think
actually,
when people think of lightsaber, I think blue is what they envision first.
no, that's not true. They might go for red. They might go for red too.
Well, I guess.
They might go for red too.
Let's put a poll in chat. When you think of lightsaber, what color comes first, blue or red? We'll see what the people say. So, Kenobi, it's time to do the hardest part of the topic here, which is worst to best Star Wars movies. Not counting the Clone Wars cartoon one, or any of. We'll just count like the main ones, including Rogue One and Solo.
Okay, those counts pretty much.
Yeah, I put those in here too, and I think we can both agree on the worst one.
So only movies, no TV shows, pretty much.
Yeah, just movies, just movies. It would take too long to do all the TV shows because I haven't seen them all either. But I've seen all the movies, so I got knowledge there.
Okay.
But I think we can both agree that Rise of Skywalker is the worst.
Definitely.
I think that in terms of being respectful to the history of Star Wars and using the characters in the right way, Rise of Skywalker takes a nice steaming dump on Star Wars in general. It like when Force Awakens originally came out, I was very excited. I liked Rey, I liked Finn, I didn't mind Poe, I liked BB-8. And by the time you get to Rise of Skywalker, all the characters have been mishandled, none of them feel genuine, and the plot is just oh, Palpatine's back somehow, and then it all just ends. And it has one of the most it just has one of those really bad plots, really bad MacGuffin. I mean, yeah, it's just all around really bad, which says a lot because there are a few Star Wars movies I would say are bad, but this one definitely takes the cake.
It's one of the it's the worst of the worst because I'm gonna talk about the sequel later, the sequel trilogy later. But yeah, it's the worst of the worst. I mean, they basically took from that book, from that novel where Palpatine gets resurrected, but they put in the worst much condition. I was like, I'd rather get the book then.
Well, also,
you know?
Also, it's like, why don't we build this up for the 3 movies instead of it just being in the 3rd movie? Like, the funny thing is that Rise of Skywalker uses a lot of fan theories. People were saying, oh, Rey is the daughter of Palpatine. Palpatine's still alive. Snoke is a clone, and you don't see that in the first 2 movies. There is nothing there in the first 2 movies that goes, oh yeah, Palpatine's back and Snoke is a clone and Rey is Palpatine's daughter. It all gets thrown at you in Rise of Skywalker, which is just bad writing. And retconning too.
It's that, dude, but it's also because they had nothing to give anymore because everything has been already written in Legends, and you know the content in Legends, like I don't know, 75% or 80% of it is pretty much like trash. Pretty much, it's just true. Though, if you get offended, not my fault. But it's kind of true. Like a lot of the novels that have been created, it's kind of a lot of them are not very good. You know, they're pretty trash too. You know, so you know they had to take at least a lot of the stuff and put it in the movie somehow. So that's what I do. But the problem is also what you explained, bad writing, everything, but also the fault of directors, because the directors there, you have 3 different directors that don't follow themselves up. You know what I mean?
Well, originally there was 3 different ones, but J.J. Abrams did Rise and Awakens. And then for the second movie was Rian Johnson, who took the second movie into a much different direction, which was a bit jarring. But then J.J. Abrams... Is it J.J. Abrams? He tried to take it back and just completely fumbled the whole thing.
So, yeah, but... Well, you know, the funny thing about J.J. Abrams is that... So So I seen this YouTube video where it says why Star Wars fans are mad, and one of the scenes actually showing J.J. Abrams said, "Do you like sequel trilogy or something like that?" And somebody says, "No." I'm like, I I would agree with you. He even said he agreed with it. I'm like, what? I'm like, what?
Well, yeah. I think that there was
That just proves it.
too many hands in the Star Wars pie by the time that Rise of Skywalker came around, and yeah, he couldn't save it for. I mean, he couldn't save it if there was a gun pointed to his head, honestly.
No. But I'm like, honestly, I don't know why they didn't put J.J. Abrams in there. I'm pretty sure they could have put someone else as a director. But
Well,
I don't make the shots of it.
Yeah, hopefully going forward, they just have one director for a trilogy, the same vision for all three movies, because when you put in different directors for a trilogy, each movie's going to feel completely different. Look at the original trilogy, look at the prequel trilogy. It's George Lucas and his group of close advisors, and they made 6 pretty good movies, minus 1, in my opinion, in the prequels. Which let's get to right now, because I feel like Attack of the Clones is right above Rise of Skywalker.
You know what? I'm gonna go with that because George Lucas did a terrible stuff. He put a freaking beard on me, like a literal beard, a fake beard, because he thought not enough beard. I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, bro. I'm like, because Ewan McGregor had a very nice beard, and he had enough just to show that over the years he grew a beard. And it says, no, put it more. You can't even see. You even see that yet. He has like fake beard. I'm like, bro, why'd you put that? Yeah, I'm like, I sincerely hated the way he put it there, but I have to agree with you that that movie was worse. There was not enough like acting very much. Dialogues were pretty short and kind of dull, very dull. But I did like one thing about it. I did like Christopher Lee in there.
Oh yeah, I mean he was the best choice for Count Dooku for sure.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think the one thing that really bugs me about Attack of the Clones is the acting. I mean, nowadays I don't mind Hayden Christensen, but Attack of the Clones was just a real rough performance, and it didn't help that the script was just so bad that he was reading from. Everyone points to the whole sand, I hate sand thing, and his acting is just really poor in there. I will say my favorite part of Attack of the Clones is that early scene where the assassin tries to kill Padme with the centipede bugs, and there's a chase. Even though it's really cheesy, I think it's a pretty fun sequence at least. But the rest, even though the Battle of Geonos is pretty cool, not really that well done in the movie in general, and the CG with Yoda fighting Count Dooku was also pretty bad. Even for the time, I felt like it was not that great.
I actually like the scene when actually a Jedi's fighting a bounty hunter, because you didn't see that often.
Yeah.
So when Kenobi was fighting Jango Fett and Danny was chasing him, and I mean, I kind of thought it was pretty cool, especially that he was using the seismic charge ones,
Yeah.
I was like, damn, that's a nice special effect. I'm not gonna lie.
Also, some really good sound design for those bombs as well.
Yeah.
I guess the other thing that I liked about Attack of the Clones was the Colosseum, where the 3 different animals are trying to get at the main characters.
Amazing.
The Acolyte is still one of my favorite designs for a monster in the Star Wars universe. It's just this scorpion spider armored type beast, pretty cool. Yeah, I like the Acolyte. What can I say?
Yeah, it's pretty great. It's good that they showed more content about Star Wars that we don't know, and it's also good because now you can put those creatures or new characters to Star Wars Encyclopedia, pretty much.
Yeah. And then the final thing that I want to say about Attack of the Clones is it's hard to really care about the two sides when it's an army of clones versus an army of droids. I feel like in the Revenge of the Sith, and of course the Clone Wars TV show, they give the clones more personality, but in Attack of the Clones, it's pretty much just robots versus robots. There's really no difference between the two sides.
Well, for me, the clones were okay, but the way the number dimension, how many clones, how many years it took, I'm like, who did the math, please? Who did the math? Because it's like 9 years to do all that, while you have the droids that can be built easily, and you can have thousands of them by a month or by days maybe. Depends on how many factories you have. And I'm like, at this point, that droids gonna get. Clones are gonna get overrun.
Yeah, it's the basic zombie versus vampire situation. There's gonna be more zombies at the end of the day over vampires because zombies are much. There's you get what I'm. You get what I'm laying down.
Yeah, I know what you're at. So for me, it's cool to see clones. It's cool armor. I liked it. Don't get me wrong.
The Gen 1 armor though was pretty bad. Can we at least admit that? Like when Revenge of the Sith came around and the clones actually had the cool like colors on them and the different helmet styles. I think that's when the clones became cool. I think Attack of the Clones it's just not cool.
Well, yeah, okay, maybe. Well, it's like in some historical wars when you have some uniforms that went bad and then you have to change few make some modifications so you're gonna be cool later on. I feel like that's what's happening over there.
I guess. All right. The next one on my list was The Last Jedi. I feel like it deserves to be third lowest because there's some cool stuff at the end with the battle on the Crystal Planet or whatever it is. I think there's some good visual stuff going on, but the rest of the movie is really just a spit in the face to the original characters of Star Wars.
No, I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I felt there was a moment. The Crystal Planet was cool. They're getting along, but everything else was. I felt it was an idea that came from Empire Strikes Back, very much.
Oh yeah,
at some point. I had this feeling that I'm watching like Empire Strikes Back again, and I'm like, what the hell is this? And
it's a bit backwards.
The fact, it was just going backward. Yeah, exactly. And at some point, like you see Leia go into space and capture something, and she's like flown off, like because now she has the Force. I'm like, well, didn't mention that. Yes, she's supposed to have the Force, but like,
it's shoehorned in.
Yeah, I'm like, what the hell is that?
Yeah, it's just a very bizarre scene. She would have died instantly when she was sucked into the space anyway.
Wait,
but it's also in that same scene. One thing. Also in that same scene, they kill off Admiral Akbar unceremoniously, which is the worst. Which is something that Rise of Skywalker also did with Nien Nunb, is they killed him off screen. Admiral Akbar, same thing. They kill Admiral Akbar in The Last Jedi, and that's just like, why? He's like one of the most beloved characters in Star Wars, and you're just gonna kill him off right here for no fucking reason? Unbelievable.
That move was a true spit, a true to the face to the fans.
Yeah,
it's true.
Literally shitting in someone's face.
At least make it somehow tragic, but no.
No, yeah, they can't do that. And even the death of Luke Skywalker is just, it's comical. It really is. Like, here is one if not the best character in the original series. He has such like this mysterious end for The Force Awakens, which really makes you think, really makes you excited. Like, oh, what's Luke gonna do? And they completely change his character. They change his personality, and then all the way at the end of the movie, they kill him off because he was concentrating too hard. He had an aneurysm. I don't know. It's just bullshit. It really is.
Well, yeah. Actually, I seen an interview with Mark Hamill talking to an interviewer, and he basically said the same thing. Like, pretty much what he was saying, he didn't like it because He thought
It's not my
he's-
Luke. It's
Yeah.
it's Ryan Johnson's Luke or whatever.
Exactly, yeah, something like that. And like the books, I'm like, what the hell happened to the books? I'm like, bro, why you burn the books and everything? Well, a lot of stuff didn't make sense. I'm like, and then he just dies off because of some reason. He becomes basically becomes first ghost. I'm like, isn't that a little bit too soon? I feel like that was a little bit too soon, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and
No.
they tried to put a lot of comedy into the movie, which doesn't make sense. I feel like if they did more serious, like half of the movie is super serious and half the movie is just jokes. And I feel like if they had leaned more into the serious side of things, the movie would have been better in general. But unfortunately, they're like, the one scene that comes to mind is the meme where Kylo Ren's sitting there shirtless, and Rey's like, "Oh, can you put on a shirt, please?" or whatever. And it's like you could have made a very serious moment here, but instead you had to lighten it up because, we can't have a super serious Star Wars movie. I mean,
Exactly.
look at Empire Strikes Back. Like, sure, there was some funny moments in there, but for the most part, if they really truly were trying to copy the original trilogy, the comedy is lesser than the serious moments in there. Like, sure, you still have Han and Leia having some really good back and forth, but it's for the most part, it's a very serious movie. It ends with a very serious moment of Luke getting his hand cut off and Han being in carbonite. And you look at The Last Jedi, and it's just jokes everywhere. It's jokes left and right, laced in between these scenes that are supposed to be super serious.
Yeah, yeah, because like you mentioned before, they killed Admiral Edward nods off screen, and you like see, oh, I see Admiral Akbar, and then
Cuss the Finn
like,
walking around with the bacta leaking everywhere or something.
yeah, it was so lame. I'm like, what's the point of that again? I'm pretty sure when people finish the movie, a lot of them turn to the dark side and just want to ambush to Disney
Well,
Lucas.
Especially after Rose slammed her speeder into Finn's speeder, and she's like, there's no time for sacrifices, and then she kisses him or whatever. It's like, look, you've already done Finn's character dirty so hard in this movie. You sidetracked him and put him onto that money planet. Like, just let him have the heroic sacrifice. But instead, Rose risks both their lives by crashing into each other. And then they say it's a kiss of friendship in the next movie. But still, it's like it's just such a stupid thing. Like, and one thing is, I didn't even mind Rose's character. I thought she was fine. But that final part just really soured me on the entire movie. Like, I was already pretty sour, but like that was like the super atomic sour is when that ending happened.
It was the worst cliche of the cliches, pretty much.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
After that, I have Phantom Menace.
Phantom Menace. Let's see.
I just felt that Phantom Menace it's a bit boring. It's interesting, but a bit boring. It's also got it's got Anakin Skywalker in there, who, watching the movies back nowadays, not the best acting job ever. But it still has some pretty cool moments, as we already discussed, the Darth Maul fight, the pod racing. But everything in between those moments are a bit boring. And then also, like, Jar Jar Binks was designed for kids. I'm not a kid anymore, and he's just annoying. Sorry, Jar Jar Binks fans.
Yeah, I see what you're talking about. Phantom Menace for me was, I feel like it was less annoying for me, Phantom Menace, because but it still was kind of a terrible start. To say terrible start.
Yeah, and that one guy who had cancer got a special screening of it. It was the last thing he saw before he died. We never got his thoughts on the movie. I think it's a sad ending.
Yeah,
Would have been interesting to know what he thought of the movie after all was said and done. I think that would have been really interesting, but it's a mystery of the universe.
Yeah, well, who knows? Maybe cause some pain. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe watching the Phantom Menace accelerated his cancer.
Yeah, maybe. I don't, like I said, we don't want it to sound mean or rude or anything to the family or.
Of course not. No,
But
yeah, obviously.
no, but I know what you mean because like I said, like I saw that video like Why Star Smash a fan, and there's some people, and there was this some interviewers asking, "Do you enjoy the movie?" Yes, and some people say, well, you know, so, and some people said no. So you already got pretty much the basic image that the movie's not that pretty much great.
So from
But
here
yeah,
on, go ahead.
but you know, hold on. But Jar Jar Binks for me was not that annoying, but like you said, it's special meant for kids because George Lucas said he did it for his kids, and I'm like, George Lucas, you gotta put aside your ego for a second.
One last thing for Phantom. Can we have more
Yeah.
dung characters? Sebulba's a great design. I love Sebulba. All right.
Well, Sebulba is not bad. Sebulba's not bad.
So the next set of movies are movies that I think are good. Below this, like I would say Phantom is like average, and then Last Attack and Rise are like bad. But the next like 2 or so movies are ones that I would say are generally good. And that starts with the Solo movie. It's just kind of dumb fun for most of it. Like if you turn off your brain, which is my least favorite thing to say, but truly if you do turn off your brain, it's a pretty fun movie. But it's one of those movies that, did we really need Solo? Like all these things about his character that we're learning are not that interesting. How he got his last name, how he met Chewbacca, how he met how he got the Millennium Falcon from. I am blanking on his name.
Actually, I'm not gonna lie, that movie kind of disappointed me somehow because I wish I didn't know. You know, it's like this magic feeling that you don't know, so you have this fan fiction stories in your thoughts. But now that he put it, and you see that he did when he said, "Oh, I fought the Kessel Run in 12 partner seconds," you know, I'm like. And we've seen that, and I'm like, was that an accident? All this was an accident?
Well, yeah,
you know.
Like I said
I'm
before,
like,
I think if it does kind of ruin a lot of things that you know about Han Solo in the future movies.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, you know, if they do like a Yoda movie like before, and if they ruin it, that's it.
Yo, Yoda and Yaddle fan fiction, let's go.
Yeah, let's go.
So right after Solo, I have The Force Awakens, and the reason why it's so high is because I went back and watched it, not recently, but a couple years ago, and I was like, you know, for the start of a trilogy, for a return to Star Wars, it was however many years since the last movie, it's not bad. It's serviceable. It does follow A New Hope way too closely in a lot of ways, but for what it's worth, with that first movie, I did like Rey, I liked Finn, I liked Poe, I liked BB-8, I liked the new characters mixing with the older characters. I thought they did a good job balancing the old and the new stuff. It's just a shame that it was so closely related to A New Hope, like it's literally like tit for tat, really. And it's also unfortunate that the movies after this one just throw everything they set up away in the Awakens, which does lower it a little bit, in my opinion.
For me, a movie, I was less enthusiastic about it because it did remind me of New Hope a lot. So I was like, no, not thank you. Not sure.
Well, I mean,
I did like some new characters like Finn. I don't mind that, like Finn, you know.
well, and the original,
Oh,
Kylo Ren
like
was
Finn.
also pretty cool. Like they
No,
actually did a decent job with his original design.
This one I'm gonna tell you, the characters that I actually enjoy in Force Awakens before everything turns to turmoil or whatever. I did like, so I like Finn, I like Poe, I like Kylo Ren. BB-8. No, the BB, not BB-8. Sorry. So BB-8 just stays out of here, and what was this there? Oh,
Maz.
what's that? Maz. Yeah, Maz can stay. Maz can stay. So those 4 characters could stay. The rest, I'll probably change it because first of all, Rey is a Mary Sue. We already seen it from the beginning. Like she taps into power, and she already gets to know how to fight. I'm like, bro, that's bullshit. You know, there's a lot of memes telling like how many times those those Jedi's have to train just to get better. I'm just telling you. BB-8 is just some droid which looks like a football. You know, like you can kick it, you're probably gonna get a home run or something. But that's just me. I mean, BB-8 could be nice. Like I said, that's why I was hesitant about BB-8 though. You know?
I guess, yeah, I guess.
Yeah, but for the rest, I'll probably change some characters just for the cause. Like
General Hux was pretty good in this one too. Like he was actually like a formidable force of nature, and like he had that like almost Nazi Germany type speech he had before firing the Starkiller base. You know, I feel like I feel like everyone was on top of their game at least for this one and doing the best they could, and then after that, they weren't into it as much.
You know, the First Order is not a bad nickname actually.
No, I mean it's not a bad concept at all. It's just
Yeah.
one, way too close to the original movie, and two, it just all the threads you get go nowhere, so it makes the movie less because of what comes after it.
Yeah, but we do mention a lot of like General Hux in some novels, and they did mention him in Mandalorian season actually.
So the funny thing is, on my list, I have A New Hope right after Awakens, because one, it's the OG, it's a classic. I mean, at this point, I would say everything above here are like pretty good movies that we're talking about. They're better than good. So yeah, I think A New Hope is like it's a perfect place to start. If you watched the original cut of the movie, I think that it's a little bit better than the Frankenstein's monster that it is now, but it's still a very fun movie, really well done, good start for the series.
I'll probably put New Hope a little bit higher though.
Fair.
That's what I think. Yeah, very high because it was still fresh. The intro was amazing. The story basically was based out of an amazing Japanese movie, The Hidden Fortress, and not to mention it was also kind of based out of Lord of the Rings a little bit, a little bit somehow, and I guess it was a hard start for George Lucas, but somehow they managed to pull it through.
I mean, groundbreaking too in special effects and stuff like that. This the original version of New Hope was supposed to go into the vault of that the U.S. has for movies for Impact, and George Lucas never gave them the original reels. They have the Frankenstein monster version in the vault, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, sad. That's sad.
I apologize. I would looking at my list now, I would probably put Revenge of the Sith below A New Hope.
Revenge of the Sith?
Because I have Revenge next.
Revenge of the Sith? Yeah, that could be.
I think I'll switch New Hope and Revenge of the Sith, because Revenge of the Sith is fun, but it does have a couple problems that are kind of glaring.
Oh yeah, not to mention a lot of memes.
Yeah, it's the most memed movie out of all of the Star Wars.
Yeah, there were some few, but still kind of favorable. Still favorable. I'm on the prequel trilogy, I have to say.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's some pretty fun stuff going on in Revenge. I like seeing Order 66. I like the different locations that they have in here, seeing the Jedi kind of lead the troops and then they get betrayed, of course, later on. I like the new version of the Clone Troopers. I think Hayden Christensen actually does a pretty decent job of being a angry, emo Anakin Skywalker in this one. But it's still a bit cringe between him and Padme.
Yeah, well, when Order 66 happened, I pretty much had the same reaction with how Yoda felt that, when Jedis were killed. Got like a heartbreak in his... That's what happened to me pretty much, I'm not gonna lie. But it was bound to happen at some point, So
yeah, I would put Revenge and then A New Hope. And then after that, I have Rogue One.
Rogue One? Oh, that's pretty good. I enjoy Rogue One. Yeah,
pretty much Rogue One upwards are the best. And I think that Rogue One does the opening is not strong, but when it starts going, it goes. Like pretty
Yeah,
much
yeah.
like halfway through to the end is like a lightning bolt, a lightning rod, I will say. That Scarif section at the end with the Death Troopers and the
Ooh,
like the rogue soldiers fighting the kind of like mishmash mangled AT-ATs that are in like prototype mode is so good. This is what I want. I want more Rogue Ones, but unfortunately, we didn't get that.
well, actually, you did get a TV show, Andor, which is pretty much amazing. Pretty much,
I haven't watched that yet. It's on my list.
you have to watch it.
I've
You
heard
have
the
to
rave
watch it.
reviews though.
You
I
have
know.
to watch it.
I know. Maybe. Well, you know what? Here's what I'll say. Request it as a topic, and that'll force me to watch it eventually.
I'll put it done right up.
But yeah, I mean, Rogue One. Like, I would say Rogue One has some of the best. I would say it has one of the best endings in all of Star Wars with that Scarif fight, and then the Darth Vader scene where he's ripping through those rebel soldiers inside of the capital ship. I think that is like that moment is striking, not only because of the music but the visuals. Like, you know, Darth Vader's breathing, and then you see the lightsaber at night, and then he just rips through all the soldiers in there. It's a
Ooh.
thrilling moment at the end. It gives you goosebumps. Yeah, just, I mean, pretty much for that final scene alone, it gets extra points. But the entire Scarif section, all the characters are really well done in the movie. Like I
Yeah.
said, it just has a slow start. It really does. It takes a while to get going, but once it gets there, it gets there.
Yeah, the Rogue One characters are amazing. Unique, pretty tough, pretty well made. Not gonna lie, everyone's pretty much amazing there.
Oh yeah.
I'm not gonna, and yeah, like you said, the end was incredible. I mean, bro, it's like one of those World War II movies where you pretty much got it, but everyone dies at the end, pretty much. You know, like this special mission or whatever. I had this sensation. Just saying.
I would also like to say face swap Tarkin, kind of weird in the movie, and of course, I didn't think that Leia was too bad at the end. Like her look, I didn't think that was bad, but I will say General Tarkin or Admiral Tarkin, the face swap for him, because, you know, obviously the actor's been dead for quite some time.
He was not. I think he was a Moff.
Moff, you're right, Moff Tarkin. Definitely could have done without that, because that was pretty bad. Yeah.
Well, not gonna lie, the CGI was pretty good. I felt like was watching a video game. It's like,
But you're watching a movie, so you do want it to
I
be
know,
less
I know,
PS3 and more, 4K,
yeah.
All right, we're at the final two here, Kenobi, and I think
All right.
everyone in the audience knows what the best one is. But I have Return of the Jedi next. I know a lot of people kind of shit on Return of the Jedi for the Ewoks, but I still find them fun. But I understand that it's like not super realistic, like these little teddy bears with medieval, cavemen weapons essentially destroying the Empire's forces. But
Well, they're not exactly medieval. They're more like well, you could say medieval. I guess.
prehistoric. I mean, they're throwing rocks.
Prehistoric. Yeah.
I feel like it's just the whole nature of the sequence is just so much fun. One of my favorite scenes is the chicken walker trying to walk over the fallen tree logs, and it's just kind of like
Oh.
roo, roo, and then falls
Oh
over.
yeah, that was a nice effect. Actually, that was nice. Special effect.
And the one thing that is great about Return of the Jedi is it starts off with the Jabba's palace sequence in the barge, which is really good. Like it just picks up and goes.
Oh, speaking about when I saw the VHS tapes, they were all original.
So it didn't
Before-
have the dancing and singing in it.
No, they did have this in Sweden, but it was the only difference pretty much was there. It was you don't have to wait like a long time to go. Like when they go to the Sark pit, pretty much. Pretty much, you don't see like this long as, what's it called? I forgot what's it called. But this is like a long cruise, trip pretty much, which it goes, and they stop. It just like goes a little bit, and you stop right at the front of Silent Pit. And the Silent Pit was different as well, visually.
Yeah, I think I remember that. But yeah, I mean.
Sorry. So, going back to Ewoks, I don't know. I mentioned about Ewoks. I mean, it makes sense though. They're in the moon. They're like far away from civilization. They probably didn't know. Like, what the hell was a gun?
Well, yeah, I mean, it makes sense that they're using spears and stuff.
What the hell is a hyperdrive space?
It just doesn't make sense that they can like kill stormtroopers with rocks and sticks. Essentially. Like the more ingenious contraptions like the.
No, Yemmy, you got it all wrong. They didn't kill them. They give them concussions so they can eat them later.
Oh, that's you're right. Yep. All right. There you go. Problem solved. Another great thing about Return of the Jedi is the Death Star 2, Darth Vader versus Luke Skywalker, and the ending where Darth Vader throws the Emperor from, down into the bowels of the Death Star 2. Just like one of those classic movie moments. Yeah, not much else I can say. It's just really good.
For me, it was amazing, especially when Luke was meeting the Emperor. He had like such a nice like those temptations, especially when like sitting in his BS chair, and I was like, yes, unless a Jedi weapon.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, I pretty much I can do a Palpatine voice. This voice pretty good.
Do the I'll be Luke. I'll be Luke, and you can say the faith in your friends is yours. So,
you have too much faith in your friends, Skywalker.
Yeah. What else? I mean.
Hold on. Remove my mask. I was all alone, the Emperor.
Oh no.
Alright, yeah.
So, yeah, number one is obviously Empire Strikes Back. I think that is easy to see coming from a mile away. It has the best... It just has the best story. It has the best sequence of events. It has the best set pieces. It has some pretty good special effects for the time, obviously. It has the most stakes out of all of the movies, and it has the best soundtrack.
Well, we all know why, because George Lucas wasn't exactly participating in there.
Yeah, his council was more so in charge of this one, right?
Yeah, it was more like his council, and the director who was doing it, he was kind of doing a non-Hollywood style, so that's how it was been amazing.
Yeah, I mean,
especially that scene, because I remember somebody said that. I don't remember which interview, but I think it was Harrison Ford, or maybe it was Irvin Kershner who said it, something about like there was a dialect about. Remember when he goes down and Leia says, "I love you," I'm like something, and then it says, "I know," because that was all changed. This actually was from Harrison Ford.
Yep. Yeah, I've heard that story where it was supposed to be he says, "I love you" back, but he says, "I know."
Yeah.
And that fits his character so well.
Yeah. And for me, it was amazing, especially when he. So my funny thing was when Luke was trying to get Yoda, and Yoda was getting all this funny stunts, because you have to understand, he's been lonely so long, like he didn't see a good survive, or like you could say another like survivor, you might say, but and then he kind of Tilly's R2D2 at some point,
Yeah.
And it was the same thing when it's funny, but before the prequels came, so they always like mention him. Like, oh, I know like this guy. Oh, I used to hang out with him. It's the same thing when like New Hope, when old bands like CRG2, it's like, oh, I must know you or something. It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
and the fighting scenes between Luke and Vader, that was top notch actually.
Yeah, I mean that's one of that is the best duel I think in
Yeah.
the entire Star Wars universe.
Oh, and the Cloud City, the way how it's been made, that was amazing actually.
Oh yeah, yeah, even like the Hoth section, the miniatures are just so well done. Cloud
Yep.
City is incredible. Like obviously, Mass Effect took a lot of inspiration from Cloud City for its Omega asteroid type city. Yeah, it's just like Empire Strikes Back. There's a reason why people consider it the best Star Wars movie and probably one
It
of the
is.
best like movies in general of all time because it has everything you want in like take Star Wars out of it, it's still a great movie. Like imagine it not being called Star Wars. Imagine it being called like I don't know, Battle Wars or something. It's the same exact movie. I mean, technically, you don't even need A New Hope to like really enjoy this one. It kind of picks up, and you kind of get the groove and know the characters from the get-go. And I think on its own, it's a great movie, but also like inside this trilogy, it just elevates it so much, which is why Disney tries to replicate the success of the original trilogy, and the main reason is because of Empire Strikes Back being one of the greatest movies of all time.
It is. Couldn't agree more with you.
So Kenobi,
Yes.
it went a little bit longer than I was expecting, but we had a great
Yeah.
conversation. Really
We did,
appreciate
we
you
did.
coming on and talking with me. Kenobi, everyone, Kenobi. Is there anything you want to
Well-
say before you sign off here?
May the force be with you.
May the Schwartz be with you.
That's another movie. But yeah, that too.
Spaceballs, the flamethrower.
Oh my god. Shush it, yogurt.
I see your Schwartz is as big as mine. All
My
right.
name is Barf. I'm my own best friend.
Yeah. I'm a Mog, half man, half dog. I'm my own best friend.
That still cracks me up.
All
Alright.
Kenobi,
Well,
I'm kicking you out, but I really
All right.
appreciate you coming on. And
All right.
we'll see you later.
see you later.
All right, Kenobi once again. Like I said, it went a little bit longer than I thought, but good conversation. Really love. I mean, obviously, I love Star Wars. Kenobi loves Star Wars. Two peas in a pod. Talking about that. So this episode's gonna go a little bit longer than expected, but that's just the way the cookie crumbles. Because I really do want to talk about Blink-182 this episode. Because I've listened to every single album this past week. And I just gotta talk about it. I gotta talk about it while it's fresh. So we might be going a little bit longer than I was expecting. But Blink-182, originally called Blink, formed in like 1996 or something like that. Of course, I didn't start listening to them until like middle school, high school, obviously. The first album that really spoke to me was, funny enough, Neighborhoods, because I was such a fan of Angels and Airwaves, and Neighborhoods was very closely related to that. But I went back and I was listening to their other stuff back in high school, and one of the first albums I picked off the shelves was Cheshire Cat, which is technically their first album, technically their second album nowadays, which was obviously way more punky and stuff like that. And I fell in love with them. But I remember the first song, as many people, the first song you hear from Blink-182 is All the Small Things. My dad was a DJ. He had the single, and that's what I listened to. Eventually, I did get Enema of the State, but it wasn't until like high school when I actually listened to the full album. Until then, Blink-182 was just like a band that I know the big hit song, but by the time like middle school and high school came around, that's when I started to really get into Blink-182. Mark Hoppus, bass player, singer, Tom DeLonge, lead guitar, singer, Travis Barker, drummer. Obviously, Travis didn't join until Enema at the State, but we'll talk about that in a minute. I wanted to go through all the albums, though, and talk about them. One of my first memories of Blink-182 was actually playing one of their songs on Guitar Hero, or maybe it was Rock Band Volume 1. They had all the small things on it, and that was like, oh, that is like the song I know. So I remember playing Rock Band Volume 1 and be like, oh my god, Blink-182. And that's when I kind of was like, oh, I should probably check out more of this stuff. Yeah, I don't change the volume of the music, so if it gets a little bit too loud, I'll just turn it down again. So let's start with number 1. Not number 1 as in like the number 1 album. Let's start off with the first album, which is the demo that they released on, which they gave to the record company. I think it's RMC Records, from 1994. I was a little bit off with my time frame. It was 1994 that they formed under the name Blink. And Buddha is the album name. This technically wasn't released until later in the band's life, but they do acknowledge that this is the first album, since their album called 9 would technically be 8 if this one wasn't acknowledged. So this got onto Spotify, and this was actually my first time listening to Buddha. I knew about Buddha, I knew about this album, but I never really listened to it, because obviously Cheshire Cat has a lot of the same songs on it, because they redid them when they got an actual record deal. So Buddha, it's a very raw album. It's very sloppy. It was recorded in the original drummer's bedroom, what was his name? I think I forgot to write his name down. But yeah, the original drummer, they recorded in his bedroom. Pretty interesting. And it also has like really bad vocal audio as well. Like the vocals are just not great, but you can see the potential in the band. Like eventually they become pop punk, and you can kind of see that here and in Cheshire Cat. But Buddha it's just like this really rough, like really raw kind of album. And I wrote down the best songs from the album. There's not too many that I would say like, oh, I want to go re-listen to this, If you do want to listen to any of these songs, most of them are on Cheshire Cat anyway, which has better recording. But Strings, 21 Days, and Reebok Commercial was the 3 songs that I thought were like really good on the album. I think Strings was my favorite, but that song also shows up on Cheshire Cat, but I think it's worse on Cheshire Cat. But yeah, I mean, Buddha, it's a very rough album. When I was ranking, I'm not gonna go over my rankings until I'm done talking about all the albums, but it's gonna be kind of low. It's just one of those things. It's like it probably shouldn't have seen the light of day, but I think it's cool that we can listen to it because it is a piece of the band's history, and it really does show them at their rawest and at like and like molding their sound into what it will eventually be. So it's pretty cool to listen to nowadays. Just not that great. But you know what is great? Cheshire Cat from 1995. Like I said, they got their record deal, and they have better recording equipment, better audio quality overall. It's much more punker, I guess you could say. It's definitely a very punky album, a little bit more punky than Buddha, I would say. It's still a raw album. Like the album still sounds like a group of teenagers playing songs, but once again, you hear the potential in the music. You hear what they are going to eventually be with Enema State and Blink-182, the self-titled album. You hear that in this album all the way back in 1995. You can hear those moments where they slow down and they have a more melodic thing going on. And the album isn't just like fast, hard-hitting songs. It is a good mix of like a little bit of those elements that you'll see later on in their discography. So that's why I highly praise Cheshire Cat. It's still a banger of an album to this day. My favorite song on here is Eminem's. It's one of the first songs, but it's like the song of the album. Also, Strings Makes a Return, like I said, not as good as the Buddha version, but still fun to listen to. Touchdown Boy, TV, Toastin' Bananas, Wasting Time, and Ben Wa Balls. Great songs on the album, but the whole album is pretty good in general. Really love it. So if you haven't yet, I would totally recommend, if between the two first albums, I would totally recommend listening to Cheshire Cat if you're a Blink-182 fan, or if you're a punk fan in general. It's a great punk album. It's still got that raw energy of the original group, but it sounds better than Buddha, and it reuses a lot of those songs, re-records a lot of those songs. It's just really good. So, Cheshire Cat, definitely a recommend from me if you haven't listened to that. After that, Dude Ranch from 1997 famously has a picture of a bull with his balls out on the cover. This is a generally good album. Obviously it's punk at its core. It's totally punk. The elements of their future sound was not showing through on Dude Ranch. This was definitely the punk album for Blink-182. If you don't like punk, this one's not going to be your favorite thing ever. This was actually their first major release, even though Cheshire Cat did get a wide range release. It was popular in Australia. Dude Ranch was like their first like big promoted album from the record company. It's what got them onto Warped Tour that year. And it also charted in Australia along with Cheshire Cat before it. So pretty cool. Okay album. I am in the minority in saying that Dude Ranch not great, and the reason for that is the one song on this album that I liked was Damn It, and that's the one that is the song from the album, right? Damn It rocketed them into stardom because it's just a hard-hitting song. It's got that really fun riff. It's got great vocals and a great story inside of it. Everything else on the album just sounds too samey, in my opinion. It's a great punk album, but the problem is that all the songs just start to sound the same, especially when you're listening to them all in a row. If it comes up in a mix, it's fine. But Dude Ranch, unfortunately, just does not reach the heights of any other other albums from this era, because it shows the least amount of uniqueness in their songs, and the only one that is really of merit is Damn It. But I also liked Pathetic, Untitled, and A New Hope. I thought those were also not too bad. But in general, Dude Ranch, I'm in the minority. I know that. Not my favorite. Alright, after that, Enema of the State. This is the album that really skyrocketed them. From 1999, they had a more pop-punkish sound to them. Travis Barker joins the band after the other drummer was let go, which is funny because in Guitar Hero World Tour, Travis Barker plays Damn It in the game. You can actually play Travis Barker, but he didn't join the band until Enema of the State, so it's kind of a weird song. It's weird that they put Damn It in there with Travis Barker since he didn't actually write the drum part for the song. Obviously, Blink-182 owns the rights to the music, so he can do whatever he wants, but it's still a little bit like, okay, why didn't we do something from Enema of the State instead of Dude Ranch? I don't know. Great track, though. Doesn't matter. But Enema of the State, it has a great flow to... I love an album with good flow, and Enema of the State has a lot of songs that kind of work together. There's the transition from like Aliens Exist into What's My Age Again, and then there's a transition from Adam's Song into All the Small Things. It just has a great flow all over, and I think that in terms of like my favorite Blink-182 sound, this one and the one next are the ones that I associate the most with Blink-182. It's that more pop punkish sound. It still has more punk elements than pop elements, but they realized their potential here. They realized what they wanted to sound like as a band after the punk era was over. Obviously, this was met with a lot of criticism from their longtime fans who were like, "Where's my punk album?" But it's funny because there's a couple songs in here that are true punk hits, right? It's just people, the big songs were the more poppy kind of songs like All the Small Things, which went like double platinum or something like that for a single, which is crazy. Other great songs on this album: Aliens Exist, classic, highly singable. Like you want to sing that song anytime it comes on. What's My Age Again? Great jam. Adam's Song, a unique song that's really good. All the Small Things, obviously classic. That's another sing-along song that everyone knows. Dysentery Gary and the original Anthem, all great songs on here. Now you will notice there's not actually a lot of songs on my favorites list compared to what the track listings are on the album, and it's because I actually on this listen I wasn't as infatuated with the album. It still is a great album, don't get me wrong. Great album cover, porn star on the cover, lesbian porn star on the cover. Let's go. But in the long term, and after listening to all the other albums, I did not feel that this one. Let's go. I did not feel like this one was as good as I remembered back in the day, right? Still a great album. Don't get me wrong. Still a good album. But the band really came together with Take Off Your Pants and Jacket, which is from 2001. This one, I feel like this album has the most songs that I like on it, and I would definitely listen to them anytime, any day. One of my favorite things is the innuendo in the title, Take Off Your Pants and Jacket, which is take off your pants and jack it, kind of fun. This was the final record released under the MCA record company, which was who originally signed them. Obviously, it's pop punk. So it's not punk. It's not strictly punk. It's pop punk. This was actually the first pop punk record in the top 200. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. It's their first top 200 record, first pop punk record ever to reach a top 200 spot. Pretty cool. After that, there's not much. I like to let this album speak for itself. Take Off Your Pants and Jacket. I think I wrote down almost every single song while I was listening to it. Starts off with Anthem Part 2, great song. Online Songs, kind of like a punkish song, pretty good. First Date, classic, single hit. Happy Holidays, You Bastard, one of the first songs that they did that was really short, but really funny. It's the song that's like, it's Christmas Eve and I only wrap 2 fucking presents. It's Christmas Eve and I've only wrapped 2 fucking presents and I hate your guts. I hate your guts and I don't give a fuck about you or something like that. Great stuff. Then it also goes like, it's Christmas Eve and Grandpa ate like 2 dozen hot dogs. It's Christmas Eve and Grandpa ate 2 dozen hot dogs and he shits his pants. He's always shitting his pants and I never want to talk to you again unless your dad will suck me off, unless your mom will suck my cock. It's one of those songs. It's fun. It's funny. It just really embodies what Blink-182 is. It's just like this kind of like gross, highly sexual young band, at the time. And they still kind of do the same thing. Rock Show, everyone knows Rock Show. It's one of their most popular songs. Stay Together for the Kids, amazing song. Every Time I Look for You, a pretty good song. I like that one. Shut Up, good song. Please Take Me Home, kind of, this song is kind of like showing what the band will eventually become with their next album, because that one it's much more produced than the other ones. And then the Reckless Abandon, it's also a really good song. So all in all, Take Off Your Pants and Jacket, definitely one of the better Blink-182 albums, maybe the best, we'll see. But definitely a great album. I listened to it twice, and it holds up very well in terms of like song structure, lyrically, it holds up really well. Very fun album. Really enjoyed it. After that, 2003's Untitled album, or self-titled album, whichever you want to say. They took a bit of a break after Take Off Your Pants and Jacket. They were getting a bit like apprehensive towards each other. There was a lot of stuff going on in the band. They took a new approach to songwriting, and you can definitely hear that in this album. You can definitely hear that they took a new approach, and that new approach was not recording in the same studio and not writing songs in the same studio as the other bandmates, which really shows in this album. If I had not re-listened to the albums in full for this, I would have said that Untitled is my favorite Blink-182 album. But after re-listening to this is quite possibly one of my least favorites, actually. Like, it's not super bad, but it's not as great as I remember. And the problem is that the big songs are really the only good songs on the album. Everything else is just kind of like close to being bad or unlistenable. There's these interlude songs that play that are just terrible. I didn't skip them, but I really wanted to. They're like a minute and a half little songs that just they're bad. They're really bad. This album also for some reason uses a lot of like electronic drums, which doesn't make any, like, why would Travis Barker choose to use electronic drums? It doesn't make any sense, and I'll talk about that again later, foreshadowing. And then there was a song on here called All of This, which was just straight ass, like really ripping ass. I seriously wanted to turn off my radio midway through this song. It was that bad. But on the positive side of things, there's some really good songs on here, and the songs that are good resonate. Like, they are good songs. Feeling This, one of my favorites. Obviously, one of my favorites. The Feeling This is a song that I find myself just kind of like singing randomly while I'm streaming. Faith fell short this time. Another song, I Miss You. It's like the first like really sappy song that the band wrote. Another song called Obvious was pretty good. Stockholm Syndrome is, of course, one of the best songs on here. Down. Another kind of sappy kind of song, but pretty good all around. And then Always, which appeared on the Rock Band Blitz game, it's a really fun song, and it's surrounded by like the worst that this album has to offer. And then the final song that I enjoyed enough to write it down was Go, but in general, I was very disappointed while listening to this album again. And once again, I feel like that is like that is going to be a bit of a hot take, but the Untitled album from Blink-182, just not good. And you can kind of understand why from what I said. Like, they recorded this separately in studios, and it just you can feel it in the album. Things just don't mesh as well as they did. The songwriting is still pretty good, but there's a lot of bad on this album, and it's just unfortunate because this used to be like the album that I really love to listen to. And listening to it now, obviously tastes have changed. I've grown up. It's just not that good. Unfortunate. And after that, they took a very long hiatus. It wasn't until 2011 that Neighborhoods came out, which was their big grand return. Essentially, I like to describe Neighborhoods as Angels and Airwaves, but kind of more rocky, kind of more punky, which isn't a bad thing. It still sounds like Blink-182 at its core, but this is during a time that Tom DeLonge was super into Angels and Airwaves, which was a side project. It was a pretty big side project, way bigger than Boxcar Racer ever was. And you can definitely tell in a lot of the later songs on the album is where you really can tell the influence from his other band in here. There's an 8-year gap between the last album. The reason that they came back together, well, there's two reasons. One is Jerry Finn, who was the producer who worked with them when they joined MCA Records. He also produced for Green Day at the time, had passed away. And Travis Barker was in a plane crash where he was one of 2 survivors. And that kind of prompted them to reconcile and be like, what the fuck are we doing? You know, why are we having these arguments? You know, life is short, whatever. So they decided to write a completely new album. And you know, listening back to this album now, obviously it doesn't hit as hard as it did back in the day, but it still hits pretty hard. It's still a pretty good album. Neighborhoods is kind of like the black sheep of the Blink-182 discography, simply because it sounds so different from the other stuff that they have done in the past and the future after this album. But I really enjoyed my time listening to this one. It definitely has a lot of nostalgia into it because I was a huge Angels and Airwaves head back in the day. And this album definitely brings up those memories, but it also is its own thing. It's a Blink-182 album at its core. It's a really well done Blink-182 album. My favorite songs on here, there's a few of them. Ghosts on the Dance Floor, Natives, Up All Night, After Midnight, Hearts All Gone, Kaleidoscope, MH4 18 2011, and then there's also some songs that I highlighted that said these are the examples for the Angels and Airwaves inspiration. And we have Wishing Well, Love is Dangerous, and This Is Home, which are good songs. I wrote them down for a reason, but they're also the key things that I would point to and say, hey, it's not totally a Blink-182 album. If you listen to these songs, you can definitely hear the Angels and Airwaves influence, but still like Neighborhoods is still a banger album, really good album. Maybe it's the nostalgia talking, but listening to it now at my ripe age of 30 years old, still a great album. Still really love this album. Next up is California from 2016. This was another long hiatus for the band, but Tom DeLonge did not come back for this album. It was Matt Skiba from Arcade Fire that joined the band, and Tom DeLonge didn't rejoin the band because of disagreements once again. He had too many projects going on. He wanted to spend more time with his family. California was actually the first #1 hit that they had in the UK. Oh, wow. Pretty cool. Pretty cool fact there, Yemmy. The interesting thing about this album is it's punk rock, but it's also very pop at times. It's very electronic pop at times. The other weird fact that I learned about this album was that they initially recorded 50 songs for the album and then trimmed it down. And what we got was some pretty good songs, but a lot of also really bad songs. I don't like Matt Skiba's voice. He sounds too much like Mark Hoppus, and when they sing together and do harmonies, it sounds fine, but when he's singing alone, it just doesn't sound right, and that might just be because it's not Tom DeLonge, but also I don't really like his voice at all, especially in the next album. But this album, it still has some bangers on it. Cynical, the opening song, is really fun. It's also the one and only time up to that point that we heard Travis Barker say a word on a record, which is when he messes up the opening to Cynical. Just a fun fact there for you. Bored to Death, great song, appears on Rock Band VR if you want to play that. Great song there. She's Out of Her Mind, No Future, Left Alone, and Rabbit Hole are the best songs on this album. But I was kind of struggling to find favorites because the album is not that great, all things considered. It like the first, I would say, 4 or 5 songs, bangers, really good. They start off the album so well, and then it just falls off pretty freaking hard. And I don't remember it being that way when I was in high school. I guess it wasn't in high school during 2016, but back when I originally listened to the album, I don't remember it being that way per se. But then again, I also really only listened to Bored to Death and Cynical on that album before switching out CDs usually. So it's one of those things that's like, I understand why this was so successful is because new Blink-182 album, you know, people are going to go crazy. But I also, retrospectively looking back, say, why was it so big? Why was it so good? It's probably because of the first like 5 songs on the album that were actually like super good. After that, the band got back together with Matt Skiba again and recorded 9 from 2019. Technically, this is their 8th album, but they acknowledge Buddha, like I already said, so it's technically 9 now. This is pop. This album is pop. And too many hands were getting in the pie here. Too many producers, too many people with their fingers getting in there, messing up their sound. California, for what it's worth, still has a decent sound to it, okay? But 9 is just bad. It really, really is. Like, this is probably the only Blink-182 album that I would put into an F tier. There's still a couple songs that I actually liked on the album, so maybe that rises it to like a D tier, D- at most. But this is just so bad. Like, this is the worst thing that Blink-182 has done, and it's unfortunate because I was genuinely excited to see where the band was going to go with Matt Skiba. Maybe he would have gotten better, maybe the songwriting would have gotten better, maybe the album would have been better, but no, that is not the case. My main reasons for saying this album is so bad is the fact that they use a lot of electronic drums, auto-tune, like what the fuck, and it's just a mishmash song structure. They start off punky and they turn pop. They start off really poppy, they turn punk, then go back to pop. It's such a weird song structure. It really fucking is. So the only songs of note that I have written down are The First Time, Happy Days, Dark Side, and I Really Wish I Hated You. Those are the only songs. That's the least amount of songs that I've written down for any of these albums, including Buddha. I think this one is lower than Buddha. And yeah, it's just like, even these songs that I've written down, they're fine, but that's the extent of it. They are fine. Dark Side is probably the best song on the album, but it has the worst YouTube video. It's the worst music video. It has a bunch of kids doing the backpack Fortnite dance. It's like, it's such a bad album. And yeah, 9 is, I say 9 to that. And we finally made it. We finally made it to the latest album, which is One More Time. Tom DeLonge back in the band, 2023 release date. Tom's back. Mark Hoppus is back. Travis Barker is back. They're all together again to celebrate the legacy of Blink-182. And you can definitely tell in this album, it sounds like a Blink-182 album. It's not California, it's not 9, it's Blink-182. It's a good mishmash of all their past styles. Like, yeah, there is kind of like a poppier song in here for sure, but for the most part, it's pop punk, pop rock, maybe a little bit Angels and Airwaves in there from here. You know, they really touched on all the different styles that they had throughout their past, which is great. I love that. What I don't love is the reason that they got back together for this album is because Mark Hoppus got B-cell lymphoma, which is a cancer. He was diagnosed in 2021, and he is officially cancer-free now, but it's a sad story for that's the reason why they got back together. Not only because Travis Barker almost died and Mark Hoppus almost died, it's one of those things. It's like, they even say it in the song One More Time, like, why do these tragedies have to happen in order for us to reconcile and come back together and be friends again? And I think that because they are older now, they are wiser now, they're more mature now, they can actually talk through their differences. Kind of like with how Smosh reunited, Ian and Anthony couldn't really communicate with each other, which is what led to Anthony leaving Smosh. Kind of the same thing here, where Tom and Travis just could not work out their differences because they weren't mature enough, or they weren't old enough, or they weren't knowledgeable enough about how to interact with their friends. And I think that this One More Time album really shows, like, hey, they actually worked together, they collaborated together, they worked out their differences, and they released this album. And it is a beautiful album. It's a great album. It is one of their best albums that they have put out. And it's crazy because this is from 2011 to 2023. Tom DeLonge was not in the band, and that's when the band really suffered. California and 9. And having the whole crew back together, not only is it totally nostalgia driven, but it's just nice to have the whole band back together and making songs. And these songs are really well done. There's banger after banger after banger on here, obviously. So just a lot of songs that I wrote down here. We have Anthem Part 3. Great way to start the album. Obviously, Anthem Part 1 and 2 are on 2 of their most successful albums, and bringing back Anthem really shows, like, hey, we're back, you know? Dance With Me, great song. Love the opening line of, when I'm teaching masturbation, I just tell people to have fun with it. Fell in Love, Terrified, One More Time, obviously. You Don't Know What You Got, Blink Wave, Bad News, Turpentine, and Childhood, great songs. I think that's all the songs in the album minus like 2. So that really tells you, like, this is like one, like this they definitely put like a lot of effort into this album. They definitely channeled their past and their current mindset. And yeah, I mean, like I said, a lot of it is kind of nostalgia driven. The synthesizer chord from the start of All the Small Things makes an appearance in here. During One More Time, they mention I Miss You and I'm So Sorry. You know, they mention that in One More Time. That's definitely a nostalgia bait there. So it is a little nostalgia bait, but it's mostly just good. Like, that's the thing. It's mostly just great. I don't care that they sprinkle in some of these little nods to their past. The main thing is that it's a great album. It's crazy that they all got back together to make this album, and maybe this will be our last Blink-182 album, but if it is, they went out on a high note for sure, because if 9 was the last album, that would have just been a tragedy, much like Darth Plagueis. So let's rank the albums. You've heard my thoughts about them. I think everyone knows what's coming in number 10, and that is 9. Like I said before, it's a low D tier and possibly an F tier, but I did mark it as a D tier in my book because there are 2 songs that I actually would re-listen to and put in a playlist if I really had to. But 9, yeah, it's just the bottom tier. It really is just the bottom of the barrel. It's pop at its core. It does not sound like a genuine album at all. It's just bad. And Matt Skiba, you should never touch Blink-182 again, please, for the love of God. After that, I have Buddha, and once again, I feel bad because it's a demo and it shows so much potential, but when you compare it to Cheshire Cat that came after that, it just really drags Buddha down. So it is D tier. It's above 9 though, but yeah, Buddha like I said, it's more of like a proof of concept, right? We can do this if you give us the right equipment. And it wouldn't even be on this listing if they didn't acknowledge it. Just putting that out there. Next up, we have our first C-tier album, which is California. Once again, great start. Like 5 songs in, I was really feeling it, and then it just went downhill really fast. It gave me hope that the next album could be better, but obviously it wasn't. But yeah, California is in the 8th spot here. The untitled or self-titled album is at number 7, another C-tier album, just a little bit above California. I think the songs that work on the untitled album are better than the songs that work on California. Feeling This and I Miss You and Always are just... I can sing along to those songs. I don't really sing along to any of the California songs. Next up is Dude Ranch, another C-tier album. Like I said, it's a punk album, and if you like punk, it's going to be your thing. For me personally, I do like punk, but I feel like this album is one of those punk albums that just sounds too samey all the way through. Damn It is the one song that really shines on here, and even then, there's another song that sounds kind of close to it, so it does take away from Damn It, but once again, it's better than the other stuff that I've already listed. So, there you go. I'm sure there's a lot of people who would rank this way higher, but for me personally, it just doesn't get there. Cheshire Cat is after that. I gave it a B tier. I think Cheshire Cat is a really great technical first album, I guess you could say. Maybe not technical, but first album that they put out under an actual record company. It has great songs on it, great bangers. Once again, it shows the potential that the band has with the more melodic stuff in there that does not show up in Dude Ranch. So that's why Cheshire Cat gets the edge and actually gets a tier above Dude Ranch. Cheshire Cat, baby. Love that album. Listen to it right after this podcast. Or tomorrow when you have a fresh mind. After that, we have the only other B tier, which is Enema of the State. I felt like this listen to of the album was worse than I wanted it to be, but it's still a great album. Like I said, there's a good list of songs that are highly singable. You can sing along to them. Obviously, it's more pop punk, but it's still got that pop flair in there. Great songwriting, great lyrically, and yeah, it's a great album all around. Enema of the State is a classic. It also boasts one of the top 100 album covers of all time, as according to I think Rolling Stone or something like that. So there you go, cool. After that, number 3, our first A tier is One More Time. Great return to form, perfect song structure, really clean. Some songs that are just like okay mixed in there, but for the most part, really great songs. If you haven't listened to One More Time, it's amazing. If you're a fan of Blink-182, you'll really appreciate it. Maybe it's a bit too nostalgia driven at times, but for the most part, really enjoyable, really great album. And then after that, I have Neighborhoods, and like I said before, this might also be nostalgic bias because I really enjoyed Angels and Airways back in the day, and this album is kind of like a punkier Angels and Airways, but re-listening to it in this day and age, I really enjoyed my time with it. I thought it was a really great album, and even though the ending few songs are a bit more of Angels and Airwaves than I was wanting, it's still just banger after banger after banger on this album. It sounds so clean, it sounds so good, there's so much going on. And I understand it's probably a hot take to say that's the second best Blink-182 album, but that's just me. Live with it. And of course, the only S-tier album, in my opinion, is Take Off Your Pants and Jacket. Obviously, there's a lot of great albums that Blink-182 has, but Take Off Your Pants and Jacket is the album that I think of nowadays and go, that's Blink-182. If you want to know what Blink-182 is, it's Take Off Your Pants and Jacket. It's their best work, their best output. I literally wrote down, like, when I was going through this, I was like, wow, I wrote down literally almost every song except for 2 for this album, which is crazy because when I originally went into this retrospective, I was like, oh, Blink-182 Untitled is going to win hands down. There's probably not going to be any contest, but in the end, Take Off Your Pants and Jacket, Neighborhoods, One More Time, Enema of the State just rose so much farther above Untitled. And Take Off Your Pants and Jacket, it's just like I said, it is the Blink-182 album. It's just great. It really is. I can't say much more about it, but in the end, that was my favorite album. So going from the worst to best, once again, just to reiterate before we close here, at number 10 is 9, then Buddha, then California, the Untitled or self-titled album, Dude Ranch, Cheshire Cat, Enema of the State, One More Time, Neighborhoods, and Take Off Your Pants and Jacket. I do feel like, and I'm going to close the book. Okay? I do feel like that is my definitive ranking, and I'm very solid on that ranking. I think that in the end, this is a retrospective, and I think that going back through these albums was good, and it really made me appreciate One More Time even more going back through them. Also, I listened to 9, and I actually have never listened to that album in full. I listened to a couple of the singles, and that was it. So this was also the first time of me listening to 9 and Buddha all the way through. All the other albums I mostly have listened to all the way through, no matter what, but it really did show me just how much changed with this band throughout the years. And I mean, I know this sounds a little bit cliche, but I also grew up with this band. Like, as they were going through growing pains, I was also going through growing pains. You know, when Neighborhoods came out, it was because they wanted to get back together and do something and make beautiful music. And at that time, I was still in high school, and it was like senior year, or maybe it was junior year of high school, and things were changing, and I could see the writing on the wall. And Neighborhoods came out at the perfect time because I really needed that kind of Angels and Airwaves sound from Blink-182 that really get me into them, you know. And then when now I think about One More Time coming out, and it's like, yeah, I really do. I understand what this album is going for. You know, I really understand it. You know, I think that 30 years on Earth, you're gonna go through some shit, you know. And Blink-182 has been around. They've been around for quite some time. Obviously, Tom DeLonge and them are all like in their late 40s, early 50s. So, you know, they got a bit of a head start on me, but I can still connect with this with One More Time, and it's probably gonna show up pretty highly on my top 10 albums of the year. So yeah, that is the Blink-182 retrospective. I really enjoyed re-listening to the albums. I really did. And next up is Deftones, but I probably am going to take a little bit of a break from the retrospectives. I probably will do the Deftones retrospective in like 2 episodes, you know. But this was fun. I enjoyed doing it, and I am excited to get to work on the next one. But I do need a little bit of a break from the retrospectives. Because it was a lot of work, and plus there was 2 albums in this group of albums that I just really did not like listening to. Like, it was a bit rough at times, but I stuck with it, and that's all that matters. And I do know that Deftones does have one album that I remember being pretty stinky, so we'll see how I feel about it in the end, though. Okay, well, I mean, obviously, you know, this being the first episode, it went a bit longer than I was expecting, but that, you know, it's the first episode. There's some growing pains, of course, to get through, but I hope everyone enjoyed the first episode. I think the chat kind of quieted down midway through here, which is to be expected. You know, it's a podcast. You're more so here for the listening pleasure. But I do appreciate anyone who was chatting throughout the time here. Maybe next time I'll actually, you know, interact with the chat a little bit more. You know, I do feel bad that I was kind of ignoring it for a little while. But I mean, I did put that into the disclaimer. I did put that in the disclaimer. Like, you know, when I'm recording a podcast, and if I get sidetracked by a comment that I see to my left or whatever, I'm going to lose my train of thought, and that's the one thing you don't want from me, because once I lose my train of thought, my really good point that was in my head just gets thrown out the window. So, you know, I appreciate everyone who is lurking or whatever. Do appreciate that. If you want to check out this podcast on the podcast platforms, it will be uploaded to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. I will be uploading a version to YouTube. It's going to be a little bit... I gotta edit it a little bit, but it will be up on YouTube on my personal channel, YemmytheFerret. And next week we'll be doing a regular stream. So, like I said before, Ferret Cafe is bi-weekly, so it's every other week, much like Film Freaks is every other week. So you won't be seeing me again till in December. Thursday the 14th. But I am planning on making it pretty consistent. I will try and make it as consistent as I can, and it all starts with me. Really, it really all starts with me. So, and also, yes, thank you to Kenobi for joining me for the Star Wars talk. Really enjoyable, really fun time. If you like this podcast, put a 1 in chat. I know there's not many people here right now. Put a 1 in chat. You know, we'll, hopefully this was a good substitute for Fubar Ferret. You know, I really did try my best to try and make something that was at least comparable. You know, comparable to Fubar Ferret in a way where it's like I am talking about random topics and whatever. But I also needed to evolve it into something new, and I do hope that. That showed through. I really do. So, thank you for listening. I'm YemmytheFerret. I'm on Twitch. I'm on Twitter. Check out the Discord if you want to submit topics for the podcast. I will catch you guys in 2 weeks. I'm out of here. One more sip of coffee before we go. Nice cold coffee here. All right, folks. Have a good night. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.